Hey guys, and welcome back to r/EntitledPeople. It's time for more Reddit stories, so be sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into it. She expected an inheritance from my late husband. My husband passed away 2 years ago. He was a remodeler who had a broad list of clients. For a time, to help out the daughter, let's call her Kiki, of my good friend of 42 years, Amy, he would hire her as a helper on some of his larger remodeling projects. During that time, Kiki would occasionally borrow things for her own projects. A portable CD player, a pair of channel locks, a winch and come-along, a table saw, chainsaw, a Graso cart paint sprayer, an air compressor, and nail gun. They were all borrowed, clean, in working order and in good condition, with all the relevant parts included. Every single one of them was returned with great delays, all broken and missing significant parts, and a crap ton of excuses. Over 2 years, Kiki managed to cost him nearly $5,000 in losses. Finally, he also quit hiring her as a helper, because he caught her stealing from one of his clients and forced her to put the item she took right back and then kicked her off the job immediately. Last September, I was visiting Amy, and Kiki was there. And then Kiki hit me up for what she called her promised inheritance, which was the first I ever heard about it. Given that my hubby and I spent the 8 years of his terminal illness talking about what he wanted after his death, given that he gifted things of his that he wanted friends to have before he died, I knew damn well he didn't intend for Kiki to have anything. My husband left no will. Amy knew that my hubby had quit lending her tools after getting the cart paint sprayer back. It was a $1,200 purchase, and was less than 4 months old when it was borrowed, and returned broken in ways the warranty would not cover. Amy also knew Kiki's attempted theft had caused him to refuse to have her work on anything with him for any reason. Amy was also a victim of her daughter stealing from her as well. Now, our state is a community property state. When a spouse dies without a will, only the surviving spouse inherits. So Amy told her daughter to back off, and I got the bright idea of how I was going to handle getting rid of all that broken stuff, which was still taking up room in the tool shed. So I told her I'd be sure to pick something out for her, even though her own behavior was the root cause of the bad blood between herself and my husband. So the next day, with Amy's help, I dropped all of the broken tools and the busted up CD player Kiki borrowed from my hubby at her apartment. Kiki wanted to know what I expected her to do with all of it. I told her that I expected her to do with them whatever it was she had expected my hubby to do with them after she returned them in the condition they were in. Now she is the proud owner of a bunch of useless tools, and I got to reclaim nearly 35 square feet of space in what is now my tool shed. The absolute nerve of that is pretty hilarious, but also enraging at the same time. To not only ask to get something out of his death, but when you do get something, you actually ask what you're supposed to do with all the broken stuff, when you're the one that broke it all in the first place. My last glorious day as a Starbucks barista. I used to be a Starbucks barista. We had a woman who would come in every morning and order, I shit you not, a double tall vanilla latte with 3/8 a pump of vanilla. Not half a pump, 3/8 of a pump. She even made one of the baristas mark our bottle pump with a Sharpie. Every single day, the first cup we would make, no matter who made it, was always wrong. Either too sweet or not sweet enough. So after a while, I began to just pretend to make another drink, pull the steam wand and wave my hands around like a fool behind the machine. I would hand her back the same drink we made her the first time, and it was always perfect the second time, even though it was the same drink. On my last day of work, this woman decided to come in twice that day. She was being overly obnoxious and talking on her cell phone about deals and her assistant, and essentially just announcing her importance to everyone in the room. It was 3 o'clock in the spring, and the place was filled with teenagers ordering frappuccinos. I had both blenders going and both steam wands going, when this woman decided to yell at me. God, I can barely hear myself think. So I replied, "Funny, I can still hear you complaining." If you knew me, you'd know I have the perfect facial expressions to go with it. I looked like a snarky little I told her that I've been handing her back the same drink every morning for over a year, too. I said verbatim, "Kinda embarrassing now that you know, right? 3/8 is half a pump for all intents and purposes here, ma'am." She lost it. She demanded my manager fire me on the spot, or she'd call corporate and we'd lose her business, blah blah blah. I hated my manager. He was the opposite of a spirit of the rules and law kind of person, and really enjoyed making our lives more difficult than they needed to be. I knew that firing me actually reflects quite negatively on his quarterly reviews, and knew he wouldn't do it. He told her it was my last day and the best he could do was send me home early. which would be a reward rather than a punishment, since the store was so busy. She proceeded to spend the next 2 hours on hold with corporate outside. Then when corporate either accidentally hung up on her or told her to shove it, she threw her glasses, called me a little bitch in front of a ton of kids, and ran to her car. To her husband, "Sorry for that night, bro. Totally my fault." Superior kept stealing my work, so I made him look stupid and crazy. So I do data analysis for financial firms. I'm based in Europe, but I got a new line manager from America. Now I get on really well with my American colleagues, but this guy is an asshat. Not sure how he got promoted to his position, as he knew nothing about the industry. I frequently had to present to the board, and he'd always go through my slides beforehand and ask me about them. He'd then ask purposefully challenging questions about things he'd only just learned from me 5 minutes before the meeting. Really dickish behavior. Once I realized what he was doing, I started being more careful about how much I shared. One time I managed to plant questions that made him look stupid in front of the board. Following this, he started making me present to him beforehand, and then would take my presentation and deliver it himself to take the credit. For the next meeting, I included a few slides in the PowerPoint that were not connected to the presentation. I was able to quickly skip through these when I was going through it with him, so he didn't pick them up. However, once he got in the meeting, the fun began. The board was very surprised to see a picture of a baby kangaroo in the middle of the projected Q3 earnings. He got flustered and blundered through the next few slides. He was getting back on track, but then the regional analysis appeared on the bare chest of Tom Brady. The board was getting visibly annoyed at this point, and they thought he was joking around. It all settled down until the final slide. It was the standard. Any questions? Only the faded picture in the background just happened to be a bikini pic of the CEO's daughter, taken from her Instagram. How did that get there? The asshat quickly made his apologies and left. He came gunning for me, so I had to play ignorant. I don't know how that happened. It was all fine when we went through it before. Must be a hacker. Luckily, Sergeant Shithead bought this excuse, as he knows nothing about anything. The board, however, wasn't so forgiving, and immediately transferred him to a more junior position. 6 months later, I got promoted to the role he had vacated. Entitled person calls cops on kids, even though she was trespassing. Yes, it is as stupid as it sounds. Back when I was between the ages of 5 to 7, I don't remember exactly, a lady came over to my house while me and my friend were in my pool, when she started stuff and called the cops on us. Now for a little backstory, I live in an area where a huge greenbelt is, which is a large open area of land. Nothing is there, just grass. So I have an area that sees right into it, and we put our pool up each summer. One day I was in the pool with my friend, who's a few years older, and everything was fine until this happened. Me and my friend were just playing Marco Polo when some lady came over onto my property, and nobody noticed her at the time, until she started randomly yelling at us, saying how we were being too loud, and that if we didn't quiet down, she was going to call the cops on us. I can hear you from all the way across the field. It's not a field, by the way. If you do not shut up and be quiet, I will call the police. We weren't even being loud either. Keep in mind, she has to walk roughly a half mile through damp grass and mud to get to my backyard. And me being the snotty brat I was back then, I gave her the middle finger. I don't know why I did. She didn't like that, and attempted to hit me before running off like a baby when she couldn't reach me. Cops later ended up showing up at my house, stating someone called, saying people were running around yelling at and assaulting someone. We had a call stating 2 kids were chasing a lady around, yelling at her and verbally assaulting her, said the cop. That isn't true. We were in the pool when some lady came and told us to be quiet, or she would call the cops. But it's private property and she was trespassing on it. But we weren't even being loud, said my friend. Thankfully, we had cameras that proved, at the timestamp, some lady who turned out to be the caller came onto our property. The camera also caught her coming to our property through the greenbelt just to yell at us. The cop decided to go talk to her. She ended up getting fined for making a false 911 call and was warned for attempting to hit me. My grandma, the owner of the house at the time, was asked if she wanted to press charges on her for trespassing and destroying her flowers. She said no, but that she wants the lady to never be near our house again. The lady didn't like that. My dog likes this spot, said the lady. And the second cop said, that doesn't matter, and if she returned, she would be arrested for trespassing. No bleeding in class? Fine, I guess we'll all leave then. A few years ago, when I was a junior in high school, we had a sub in history. Now, this class was a fairly relaxed class. We could eat, be on our phones, talk, basically do whatever. The sub did not like that and said while we had him, we would follow his rules, and not our original teacher's rules. None of us really cared and didn't want to fight, so we did follow his rules. There was one student in my class that had a thing for picking at his nails when he was anxious. He had gotten better over time, but that specific week we had a sub, he was having some at-home issues, and was picking a bit more than usual. Our original teacher was always understanding, and had something for him to fidget with instead of his skin or his nails. He didn't have his own stuff, so the teacher provided every day. However, since the teacher wasn't there, he didn't have his usual fidgets, and was picking at his nails quite a bit. He ended up picking at his cuticle so much it started bleeding. Everyone was worried and wanted to make sure he was okay. But the sub didn't like that. He didn't like the fact that we were more concerned about our friend than the life story he was sharing. He told the kid to get out, as he will not have people bleeding in his classroom. The kid got his things and went to leave. I kid you not, every single girl grabbed their bags and left with him. Then, to make it all better, all the boys got up and joined us in the hall. The sub was pissed. He asked why we all left. One of the other girls said she was on her period. Every girl said the same. Then one guy said he gets runny noses on a regular and doesn't want to take a chance that he'll bleed in the sub's classroom. Another guy had a band-aid on his finger and said he cut it making breakfast that morning and it was still bleeding. Every single boy in that class came up with some sort of reason they were bleeding or thought they were going to. The sub ended up having no class for the next hour and a half. We all got sent to the principal's office. The idiot sub forgot the principal was our teacher's husband and knew what was going on with the kid. None of us got in trouble. We actually ended up being allowed to chill in the conference room until our next class. The sub never came back. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button, I'd really appreciate it, and subscribe if you haven't already. So I'm out of here. Have an awesome day, guys.